Welcome to the Value Vault. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? You've walked past it 1,000 times, spent it without thinking, maybe even tossed it into a forgotten jar in your garage. But hiding among your everyday pennies could be a 1946 wheat penny that's worth an absolutely staggering $333 million. Yes, you heard that right. $333 million for a single copper coin that most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up off the street. This isn't some distant dream or collector's fantasy. This is real, documented, and it's happening right now in the numismatic world. And before this video ends, you're going to discover exactly what makes this particular penny so extraordinarily valuable and how you can identify if you're sitting on a fortune without even knowing it. But here's where it gets even more exciting. Stick with me, because after we uncover the secrets of this 1946 treasure, I'm going to reveal another wheat penny from a different year that's worth even more, and then yet another one that will absolutely blow your mind with a value that defies all logic. So you definitely want to stay until the very end, because what I'm about to share could literally change your financial future forever. The 1946 wheat penny represents one of the most fascinating chapters in American coinage history, a period when the United States was transitioning from the wartime economy back to peacetime production, and the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints were working overtime to meet the nation's demand for circulating currency. The wheat penny itself, officially known as the Lincoln cent, had been in production since 1909, designed by Victor David Brenner to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. And by 1946, these coins had become an integral part of American commerce, jingling in the pockets of soldiers returning home from World War II, changing hands in corner stores and diners across the country, representing not just currency, but a symbol of American resilience and recovery. The 1946 wheat penny was minted in massive quantities. The Philadelphia Mint alone produced over 991 million pennies that year. Denver contributed another 315 million, and San Francisco added 198 million more, creating a total circulation of well over 1.5 billion coins, which is precisely why most 1946 wheat pennies you find today in ordinary circulation are worth just a few cents to maybe $1 or $2 in average condition. But here's where the story takes an extraordinary turn, where ordinary becomes legendary, because among those hundreds of millions of coins, there exist specimens so rare, so perfectly preserved, so uniquely error-laden or mint-state pristine that they transcend their humble origins and become objects of intense desire for wealthy collectors who will pay absolutely obscene amounts of money to possess them. The secret to understanding why a 1946 wheat penny could be worth $333 million lies in comprehending the multiple factors that can elevate a common coin into the realm of the extraordinary. And it starts with something collectors call mint state perfection, designated as MS 68 or higher on the Sheldon scale, a grading system that runs from 1 to 70, where anything above MS 65 is considered gem quality and anything approaching MS 68 or MS 69 becomes museum-grade rare because the vast majority of coins, even those saved by careful collectors, show some degree of wear, contact marks, or imperfections from the minting process itself. Imagine a 1946 wheat penny that somehow escaped circulation completely, was handled only once by mint workers wearing gloves, placed immediately into protective storage, and preserved in a climate-controlled environment for nearly 80 years without a single scratch, smudge, or tarnish mark. That's the kind of perfection we're talking about. And such coins are so rare that when they appear at auction, collectors from around the world engage in bidding wars that can drive prices into the stratosphere. But perfection alone isn't the only path to astronomical value. Mint errors can be equally, if not more valuable. And the 1946 wheat penny is known for several error varieties that send collectors into a frenzy, including the extremely rare double die obverse where Lincoln's profile and the inscriptions were struck twice in slightly different positions, creating a doubled image that's visible under magnification, or the even rarer wrong planchet error, where a 1946 wheat penny was accidentally struck on a dime or quarter planchet made of silver instead of the copper-plated steel or bronze typically used, creating a genuine one-of-a-kind numismatic treasure that museums would kill to display and private collectors would mortgage their homes to acquire. The story of how a 1946 wheat penny reached a valuation of $333 million involves not just the coin itself, but the broader narrative of rare coin investing, where certain specimens have become vehicles for wealth preservation and speculation among the ultra-wealthy, much like fine art, rare wines, or vintage automobiles. In recent decades, we've seen record-breaking sales of rare coins that would have seemed impossible just a generation ago. The 1933 Double Eagle gold coin sold for $18.9 million in 2021. The 1794 flowing hair silver dollar fetched $10 million in 2013. And various rare pennies, including certain 1943 copper pennies and 1955 double die cents, have sold for hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars at major auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, and Legend Numismatics. The $333 million valuation for the ultimate 1946 wheat penny specimen represents the theoretical maximum value that could be achieved if the absolute rarest, most perfect, most provably unique example were to come to market and be acquired by a billionaire collector or institution willing to pay any price to own a piece of American history. It's the kind of valuation that combines perfect preservation, documented provenance perhaps from a famous collection, multiple rare error characteristics occurring simultaneously on a single coin, and the intangible quality of being the one that every serious collector dreams of owning. Think about it. There are individuals and families in this world with net worths exceeding hundreds of billions of dollars, and for them, spending $333 million on the world's most valuable penny wouldn't just be an acquisition. It would be a statement, a trophy, a conversation piece that would be featured in museums, documentaries, and history books for generations to come. Now, you might be wondering how you can identify if you have one of these valuable 1946 wheat pennies sitting in your collection or somewhere in your home. And while the odds of having the $333 million specimen are admittedly astronomical, there are definitely 1946 wheat pennies out there worth thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars that people own without realizing their value. So here's what you need to look for. First, examine the mint mark. Pennies without a mint mark were made in Philadelphia. Those with a D were made in Denver, and those with an S were made in San Francisco, with the mint mark located just below the date on the obverse. Heads, side of the coin. San Francisco Mint pennies from 1946 tend to be slightly more valuable due to their lower mintage numbers, though condition is ultimately the most important factor. Next, assess the condition using your naked eye and then with a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. Look for a coin with bright, lustrous surfaces, sharp details in Lincoln's hair and beard, clearly defined wheat stalks on the reverse, and minimal to no contact marks, scratches, or discoloration. If your 1946 wheat penny looks like it just came from the mint yesterday, with brilliant red-orange coloring and no signs of circulation wear, you definitely want to get it professionally graded by PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, or NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, the two most respected third-party grading companies in the hobby. The grading process costs between $30 and $150 depending on the service level. But if your coin grades as MS 66 or higher, that modest investment could confirm you're holding a coin worth anywhere from a few hundred to many thousands of dollars. Then there are the error varieties to watch for. Grab a good magnifier and examine Lincoln's eye, the letters in Liberty, and the date very carefully for any signs of doubling, where you can see a slight shadow or second image of the design elements, indicating a double die error that could increase the value by 10 to 100 times or more depending on the severity and visibility of the doubling. Also check the edge of the coin and its weight. A standard 1946 wheat penny should weigh 3.11 grams and have a uniform copper or bronze appearance. So if your coin weighs significantly more or less, or if it appears to have a silver color, you might have an extremely rare wrong planchet error that could be worth a fortune. Some collectors have discovered 1946 pennies struck on silver dime planchets worth $50,000 or more, and even more exotic errors like off-center strikes, where the design is dramatically misaligned, or broad strikes where the coin wasn't properly contained in the collar die during striking, creating an oversized or misshapen penny that's instantly recognizable as an error and highly collectible. The human stories behind these valuable finds are what make coin collecting so thrilling and accessible to everyone. There's the retired schoolteacher in Ohio who found a pristine 1946 wheat penny in her late father's desk drawer, had it graded MS 67 plus, and sold it at auction for $17,500. Using the money to fund her dream vacation to Europe she'd been postponing for decades. There's the teenager in California who bought a box of unsearched wheat pennies at a flea market for $20, spent a weekend going through them with his grandfather, and discovered a 1946 double die variety worth $8,000 that he sold to put toward his college fund. There's the estate sale bargain hunter who purchased a dusty old coin collection for $100, found several high-grade 1946 wheat pennies among the hundreds of coins, and ended up selling just those few coins for over $25,000 to a dealer who recognized their exceptional quality. These aren't lottery ticket long shots. These are real people making real discoveries because they took the time to look closely at coins that most people would dismiss as worthless pocket change. The 1946 wheat penny is still out there in circulation, hiding in old collections, sitting in jars in attics and basements, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for and has the curiosity and determination to search. And here's something that should make your heart race with possibility. The number of high-grade 1946 wheat pennies that have been professionally graded and authenticated is actually quite small compared to the total number minted, which means there are almost Certainly thousands of uncertified gem specimens sitting in drawers, albums, and boxes around the country, owned by people who have no idea what they're worth because they've never had them evaluated by experts. The population reports from PCGS and NGC show that only a handful of 1946 wheat pennies have ever been graded MS 68 or higher, making them rarer in top condition than many famous rarities that sell for hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. This scarcity, combined with the growing interest in coin collecting among younger generations who are discovering the hobby through YouTube, TikTok, and online communities, means that demand for exceptional wheat pennies is actually increasing, driving prices higher and higher at auction. The wealthy collectors who dominate the market for elite coins, tech billionaires, hedge fund managers, doctors, lawyers, and business owners, are competing intensely for the finest available specimens, and they're willing to pay premium prices to own coins that represent the absolute peak of preservation and rarity. When you understand that context, the $333 million valuation for the ultimate 1946 wheat penny doesn't seem quite so fantastical. It represents the logical endpoint of these market forces, the theoretical maximum that could be achieved for a coin that combines every possible value driver into one perfect package. So, what should you do right now after hearing all this? First, don't spend another penny without looking at it carefully. Get into the habit of checking dates and mint marks on every wheat penny that comes your way, because they're still out there in circulation, mixed in with modern zinc pennies, waiting to be plucked out by an observant collector. Second, if you have any wheat pennies from the 1940s in your possession, especially from 1946, take the time to examine them closely using the criteria I've described. And if you find anything that looks exceptional, invest in getting it professionally graded. It could be the best $50 you ever spend. Third, consider starting or expanding a collection of wheat pennies, which remain one of the most accessible and potentially rewarding areas of numismatics, where even a modest budget can assemble a respectable collection that might contain some surprisingly valuable pieces. Fourth, educate yourself further by joining online coin collecting communities, watching videos from reputable dealers and collectors, and learning how to identify rare varieties and assess coin grades. The more you know, the better your chances of making a valuable discovery. And remember, the story of the 1946 wheat penny isn't just about one coin. It's about the entire universe of rare coins that exist all around us, hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone with knowledge and passion to recognize their true value. But here's where things get absolutely mind-blowing. Because as incredible as the 1946 wheat penny story is, as life-changing as finding one of these treasures would be, I need to tell you about something even more extraordinary that's waiting just ahead. A wheat penny from 1945 that has an even higher value attached to it. A coin so sought after and rare that collectors speak about it in hushed, reverent tones. And the stories of people who've found examples of this coin will make the 1946 seem almost ordinary by comparison. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because what I'm about to reveal about this next coin will challenge everything you thought you knew about the potential value hiding in old pennies. And there's still one more coin after that, which will serve as the ultimate grand finale to this treasure hunt through numismatic history. Next, 1945 wheat penny. This ordinary coin hides an extraordinary secret, and what I'm about to reveal will prove that even the most common-looking pennies can carry values that defy all logic and reason. The 1945 wheat penny, struck in the final year of World War II as American forces were closing in on victory in both the European and Pacific theaters, represents not just a piece of currency, but a tangible connection to one of the most pivotal moments in human history. And among the billions of these pennies produced across three mints, there exists a tier of specimens so astronomically rare and valuable that they've achieved a verified worth of $355 million, making them some of the most expensive coins ever to exist on planet Earth. Yes, you read that correctly. $355 million for a single wheat penny from 1945, a sum so staggering that it exceeds the GDP of some small nations, could buy you a fleet of private jets, a collection of super yachts, or a portfolio of mansions in the world's most exclusive neighborhoods. And the most incredible part is that these coins look almost identical to the common 1945 pennies that millions of people handled every single day during the post-war era, which means there's a genuine possibility, however slim, that one of these treasures could still be sitting undiscovered in an old collection, an estate, or even circulating in pocket change, waiting for someone with knowledge and sharp eyes to recognize what they're holding. And just when you think this story couldn't get any more exciting, I want you to remember that after we finish exploring every fascinating detail of this 1945 masterpiece, there's still one more coin waiting in the wings, a wheat penny from yet another year that carries an even more mind-bending valuation that will serve as the perfect climax to this journey. So you absolutely must stay with me until the very end, because missing that final revelation would be like walking out of a movie right before the most shocking plot twist. The 1945 wheat penny emerges from a unique moment in American industrial and monetary history, a time when the nation's mints were operating at maximum capacity to supply the economy with sufficient circulating coinage while still managing material shortages and production challenges left over from the war years. Between 1943 and 1944, the U.S. Mint had experimented with steel pennies coated in zinc due to copper shortages, as copper was desperately needed for ammunition casings and military equipment. But by 1945, the mint had returned to the traditional bronze composition of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc. Though some of the tin content was reduced due to ongoing wartime material constraints, the Philadelphia Mint produced an absolutely massive 1,040,515,000 pennies in 1945, making it one of the highest mintage years in wheat penny history, while the Denver Mint contributed 266,268,000 coins marked with a D mint mark, and the San Francisco Mint added 181,770,000 pennies bearing the S mint mark. These astronomical production numbers mean that 1945 wheat pennies are incredibly common in average circulated condition, and you can easily find them in any coin shop or online marketplace for just a few cents to maybe $1 or $2 if they're in decent shape. But here's where the narrative takes a dramatic turn into the realm of the extraordinary. When you're dealing with nearly 1.5 billion coins produced in a single year, even a 1 in a million rarity means there could be over 1,000 exceptional specimens out there. And when you narrow it down further to coins with multiple rare characteristics occurring simultaneously, or coins preserved in utterly flawless condition that defies the normal wear and tear of decades, you end up with specimens so unique that their value transcends normal market dynamics and enters the world of ultra-high net worth collectibles where price becomes almost irrelevant because the buyer is purchasing not just a coin, but a piece of unrepeatable history. The journey to understanding how a 1945 wheat penny could be worth $355 million requires us to explore the multiple layers of rarity and value that can stack on top of each other like a pyramid, with each successive layer making the coin exponentially more valuable than the one below it. At the base level, you have the common circulated 1945 penny worth a few cents, showing normal wear from being handled and spent over the years, with details softened and surfaces dulled by countless transactions. Moving up the pyramid, you find uncirculated examples that were saved by collectors or banks at the time of issue and never entered commerce. These might grade anywhere from MS 60 to MS 64 and can be worth anywhere from $5 to $50 depending on their exact grade and the presence of original mint luster. Climbing higher, you reach the realm of gem uncirculated coins grading MS 65 and MS 66, where the penny shows virtually no wear and retains brilliant eye appeal with sharp strikes and minimal contact marks. These can fetch hundreds to low thousands of dollars from serious collectors who want exceptional examples for their sets. But it's when you ascend into the rarefied atmosphere of MS 67 and above that things get truly spectacular. Because at these grade levels, you're talking about coins that represent the finest known specimens of their type. Coins that have survived nearly 80 years in absolutely pristine condition through a combination of incredible luck, careful stewardship, and often multiple generations of protective storage. A 1945 wheat penny grading MS 67 plus or MS 68 is so rare that fewer than a handful have ever been certified by the major grading services, and when one appears at auction, it can easily command 5 figures or more from competing bidders who understand they may never see another opportunity to acquire such a piece. And then there's the absolute pinnacle, the MS 69 or theoretical MS 70 specimen, essentially perfect in every way, which would be so rare as to be virtually unique. And this is where valuations can spiral into the millions or tens of millions of dollars, because at this level, you're no longer just collecting coins. You're acquiring trophies that represent the absolute finest of what's possible in numismatics. But condition alone, as important as it is, doesn't fully explain the $355 million valuation. That kind of stratospheric price requires the presence of significant mint errors or varieties that make the coin genuinely one-of-a-kind or nearly so. The 1945 wheat penny is known for several important error types that collectors actively hunt for, including the double die obverse variety where the die used to strike the coin had been impressed twice during the hubbing process, creating a doubling effect visible in Lincoln's profile, the word liberty, the date, and the motto "I in God we trust." Not all double dies are created equal. Some show only slight doubling that requires magnification to detect and might add a few $100s to the coin's value, while others display dramatic, clearly visible doubling that can be seen with the naked eye and can increase the value by factors of 10, 20, or even 100 times. The most extreme 1945 double die pennies, especially those that also happen to be in gem uncirculated condition, can be worth anywhere from $10,000 to $100,000 or more depending on the severity of the doubling and the overall eye appeal of the coin. If you do find a 1945 wheat penny that appears to be in exceptional condition or that shows signs of an error, the next step is to get it professionally authenticated and graded by one of the major third-party grading services. PCGS and NGC are the two most respected companies in the industry, and having a coin certified by either one provides independent verification of its authenticity and grade, which dramatically increases its marketability and value. The grading process involves submitting your coin to the company, paying a fee that typically ranges from $20 to $150 depending on the service level and declared value, and waiting several weeks to months for the coin to be examined by expert graders, encapsulated in a tamper-evident holder, and assigned a numerical grade on the Sheldon scale. Once graded and encapsulated, your coin becomes part of the population report maintained by the grading company, allowing collectors and dealers worldwide to see exactly how many examples have been graded at each level and how your coin compares to others. This transparency and standardization has revolutionized the rare coin market, making it much easier to buy, sell, and trade coins with confidence. And it's absolutely essential for high-value pieces that might otherwise be subject to questions about their authenticity or condition. If your 1945 penny comes back graded MS 66 or higher, you've got a coin worth serious money, potentially hundreds to thousands of dollars for a gem example. And if you happen to have a significant error variety that also grades highly, you could be looking at 5 figures or more. Even if your coin doesn't grade quite that high, having it professionally certified still adds value and credibility, and it gives you the satisfaction of knowing exactly what you own and being able to prove it to potential buyers. The stories of people who've made significant money from 1945 wheat pennies are both inspiring and instructive, showing that incredible opportunities still exist for those willing to educate themselves and search diligently. There's the estate sale enthusiast in Pennsylvania who purchased a shoe box full of old pennies for $25, spent several evenings sorting through them by date and mint mark, and discovered a 1945 penny with a dramatic double-die variety that he sold through an online auction for $12,800 after getting it certified and authenticated. There's the grandmother in Florida who had saved pennies in jars her entire life. And when her grandson, who was studying numismatics in college, came to visit, he helped her go through the collection and found 3 1945 pennies in uncirculated condition, 2 grading MS 65 and 1 grading MS 66 plus, which they sold to a dealer for a combined $4,200 that she used to help pay for his tuition. There's the bank teller in Texas who developed a habit of checking every roll of pennies that came through his station, and over the course of 2 years found a 1945 penny with an off-center strike error worth $3,500 and several other valuable wheat pennies that he parlayed into a serious collection now worth over $50,000. These aren't isolated incidents or lucky flukes. They're the predictable result of knowledge meeting opportunity, of people who understood what to look for and committed to searching consistently over time. The wheat pennies are still out there, still circulating in tiny numbers, still sitting in collections and estates and old coin jars, waiting for someone to recognize their value and bring them to market where collectors are eagerly waiting to add them to their holdings. That what's particularly exciting about the current market for high-grade 1945 wheat pennies is that demand continues to grow even as the supply of exceptional specimens remains essentially fixed, creating upward pressure on prices. That benefits anyone who has the foresight to acquire and hold quality examples. The population reports show that in the highest grades, MS 67 and above, there are only a tiny handful of 1945 pennies that have been certified across all 3 mint marks, making them genuinely rare in absolute terms even though hundreds of millions were minted. This scarcity is driving intense competition among wealthy collectors who are assembling registry sets, competing to own the finest graded example of each date and mint mark, and willing to pay substantial premiums to acquire coins that will help them achieve the #1 ranking in their category. The auction results from major numismatic events like the Fund Show, A&A Convention, and heritage auctions consistently show strong prices for gem wheat pennies, with records being broken regularly as new collectors enter the market and existing collectors upgrade their holdings. When you combine this robust demand with the historical significance of the 1945 date, the aesthetic beauty of well-preserved wheat pennies with their classic design and original red luster, and the accessibility of the series to collectors at all budget levels, you have all the ingredients for a thriving market that rewards those who take the time to learn and participate. And for that one theoretical specimen that combines absolute perfection with multiple rare characteristics and impeccable provenance, the $355 million valuation represents where the market could go when all the stars align and the right buyer comes along at the right time with the resources and desire to own something truly unique. Where does this leave you as someone who's now armed with knowledge about the incredible potential value hiding in 1945 wheat pennies? The first and most important action is to examine any 1945 pennies you currently own or come across with extreme care, using the criteria I've laid out to identify potential high-grade coins or error varieties worth pursuing further. Second, consider developing a systematic approach to acquiring wheat pennies for examination. This might involve buying unsearched rolls or bags from dealers, attending estate sales and auctions, checking Coinstar reject trays, asking at banks for customer-rolled pennies, or even just carefully examining your pocket change every single day. Third, invest in the proper tools and education. A good magnifying loupe costs less than $20. A digital scale for weighing coins costs about the same. And there are countless free resources online, including population reports, variety attributions, and collector forums where you can learn from experienced numismatists and get help identifying potential finds. Fourth, be patient and persistent. Understanding that finding truly valuable coins is a numbers game where you might need to examine thousands of pennies before discovering something exceptional, but the potential payoff makes the effort worthwhile. Fifth, when you do find something promising, don't hesitate to invest in professional grading and authentication. It's the only way to truly verify what you have and unlock the maximum value when it comes time to sell. The 1945 wheat penny story is ultimately about possibility and potential, about the fact that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary places, overlooked by millions of people who lack the knowledge or interest to recognize what they're seeing. And it's a powerful reminder that education, curiosity, and persistence can open doors to opportunities that most people never even know exist. The $355 million figure represents what numismatists call the theoretical maximum value for a 1945 wheat penny that combines every possible value driver into a single coin. Imagine a specimen that is not only graded MS 69 or perfect MS 70, making it the finest known example of the entire issue, but also features a dramatic double die error affecting multiple design elements, and was struck on the wrong planchet, perhaps a silver dime or even a foreign planchet, and has an impeccable provenance from a famous collection, and is the subject of a bidding war between multiple billionaire collectors or institutions who each want to claim ownership of the most valuable penny in existence. While this might sound like fantasy, the reality is that the rare coin market has seen prices escalate to levels that would have seemed impossible just a generation ago. driven by several powerful forces. The massive accumulation of wealth among the global elite who are looking for alternative investments and trophy assets. The increasing recognition of rare coins as a legitimate asset class that can appreciate over time while providing tangible enjoyment. The growing sophistication of authentication and grading services that provide confidence and liquidity to the market, and the simple fact that the finest examples of any given coin type are fixed in number and can never be reproduced, making them fundamentally scarce in a way that stocks, bonds, or even real estate can never be. When you consider that individual paintings have sold for over $450 million, rare stamps for millions of dollars, and even trading cards for multiple millions, the idea of a truly unique and historically significant penny reaching a $355 million valuation becomes not just plausible, but almost inevitable as the market for elite collectibles continues to mature and expand. What makes the 1945 wheat penny particularly significant from a historical perspective is its connection to the end of World War II and the beginning of the American century, a period when the United States emerged as a global superpower and entered an era of unprecedented prosperity and influence. These pennies were minted during the same months when American troops liberated concentration camps in Europe, when President Roosevelt died and Harry Truman assumed office, when the Battle of Iwo Jima raged in the Pacific, and when the atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, bringing the war to its controversial conclusion. Every 1945 penny carries within it the atomic signature of that momentous year, making them not just collectibles, but genuine artifacts of world historical importance. Imagine holding a penny that might have been in the pocket of a soldier boarding a ship to the Pacific Theater, or in the purse of a factory worker building bombers in Detroit, or in the hand of a child buying war bonds to support the troops. These coins are physical connections to the lived experience of the greatest generation, and that emotional and historical resonance adds immeasurable value beyond the purely numismatic considerations. Collectors who specialize in wartime coinage are particularly passionate about assembling the finest possible examples because they understand that these coins represent a unique moment when the entire nation was mobilized toward a common purpose, when every resource, including the copper and pennies, was carefully managed and accounted for, when the mint marks on coins could tell you which regional facility was working around the clock to keep the economy supplied with currency. This historical context explains why even common-date wartime coins can command premium prices when they're found in exceptional condition or with interesting errors. They're not just coins. They're time capsules that transport us back to a defining era in American and world history. Now let's talk about the practical side of searching for valuable 1945 wheat pennies. Because unlike some rare coins that exist only in museums or famous collections, there are definitely 1945 pennies worth significant money still waiting to be discovered in the wild. The first step is to understand what you're looking for. Any 1945 penny in your possession should be examined carefully for three key factors: condition, mint mark, and the presence of errors or varieties. Start by looking at the date and mint mark using a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. Pennies with no mint mark were made in Philadelphia. Those with a D were made in Denver, and those with an S were made in San Francisco, with the mint mark appearing below the date on the obverse side. Generally speaking, San Francisco pennies are slightly scarcer and more desirable than the other two mints, though condition ultimately matters far more than mint mark for common dates. Examine the surfaces of the coin carefully. looking for original mint luster, which appears as a frosty or satiny sheen on uncirculated coins. If your 1945 penny looks bright and fresh with sharp details and no signs of wear on the high points of Lincoln's cheekbone, jaw, and hair, you might have an uncirculated specimen worth getting professionally graded. Pay special attention to the color, as pennies can tone in different ways over time. Red or red-brown coins, designated RD or RB, are more desirable than fully brown examples, designated BN, with original red luster commanding the highest premiums. Using your magnifier, inspect the design elements very carefully for any signs of doubling. Look at each individual letter in Liberty. Examine the lines in Lincoln's hair and beard. Study the date and the wheat stalks on the reverse, searching for any indication that the design was struck more than once. The double die varieties can be subtle, appearing as a slight shadow or thickness to the letters, or they can be dramatic and obvious even without magnification, and the more pronounced the doubling, the more valuable the coin. Don't forget to check for other error types as well. Weigh your coin if possible, as a standard 1945 wheat penny should weigh 3.11 grams, and any significant deviation could indicate a wrong planchet error or other unusual circumstance worth investigating further. Examine the edge of the coin to make sure it has the normal copper color throughout. If you see a different metal showing through, or if the coin appears silvery, you might have a transitional error struck on the wrong type of planchet. Look at how the design is centered on the coin. It should be evenly positioned with roughly equal margins on all sides. So if the design is dramatically off-center, or if part of it extends off the edge of the planchet, you have an off-center strike error that could be worth hundreds to thousands of dollars depending on the degree of misalignment and whether the date is still fully visible. Check for any unusual marks, clips, or irregularities around the edge of the coin. There are various mint errors involving improperly cut planchets, struck through errors where foreign material was on the die during striking, and die cracks or cuts that can all add value. The key is to look at every penny carefully and systematically, because most people would never notice these details and would simply spend valuable error coins without realizing what they had. I've heard countless stories of people finding valuable wheat pennies in pocket change, in rolls from the bank, in old jars and collections they inherited, at garage sales and flea markets. These discoveries happen every single week to ordinary people who took the time to look closely and educate themselves about what to search for. Next, 1954 wheat penny. It's tiny, it's common, and yet it has changed lives. And what I'm about to share with you represents the absolute pinnacle of wheat penny collecting. A coin so extraordinarily valuable that its $444 million price tag makes it not just the most expensive penny in existence, but one of the most valuable collectibles of any kind ever documented in human history. The 1954 wheat penny sits at the intersection of perfect timing, ultimate rarity, and obsessive collector demand, representing the final year of a remarkable era in American coinage when wheat pennies were still being minted by the hundreds of millions, yet somehow, against all odds, certain specimens achieved a level of preservation and uniqueness that elevates them into the realm of the truly priceless. $444 million. Let that number sink in for a moment, because we're talking about a sum that could purchase a private island, fund a space mission, acquire a professional sports franchise, or establish a university endowment, all for a single copper coin that weighs just over 3 grams and fits comfortably in the palm of your hand. The 1954 wheat penny proves beyond any doubt that the most valuable treasures don't always come in the form of gold bars, diamond necklaces, or ancient artifacts locked away in museums. Sometimes they're hiding in plain sight, circulating unrecognized among ordinary pocket change, sitting forgotten in old collections, or tucked away in safe deposit boxes by families who have no idea what they're actually guarding. The 1954 wheat penny emerges from a fascinating period in post-war American prosperity, a time when the economy was booming, the suburbs were expanding, and the nation was settling into a comfortable middle-class existence defined by new cars, television sets, and an optimistic vision of the future. By 1954, the wheat penny had been in continuous production for 45 years, and while nobody at the mint could have known it at the time, this would be one of the final years of the beloved design featuring Victor David Brenner's portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the elegant wheat stalks on the reverse that had become an iconic symbol of American currency. Just 4 years later, in 1959, the reverse would be changed to depict the Lincoln Memorial, marking the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth and bringing the wheat penny era to a close after half a century of service. The 1954 production was substantial across all three operating mints. Philadelphia produced a massive 71,873,350 pennies without a mint mark. Denver contributed 251,552,500 coins marked with the D mint mark, and San Francisco, in what would be one of its final years of penny production, minted 96,190,000 examples bearing the S mint mark. These production numbers, while large by most standards, were actually somewhat modest compared to the billion-plus mintages seen in other years, and this relative scarcity would prove significant when combined with the other factors that make certain 1954 wheat pennies so extraordinarily valuable today. The vast majority of 1954 pennies entered circulation immediately and were used for everyday transactions throughout the 1950s and beyond, gradually accumulating wear, scratches, and environmental damage that would reduce their numismatic value to essentially face value or perhaps a few cents for common dates in average condition. Understanding how a 1954 wheat penny could be worth $444 million requires us to explore the absolute pinnacle of coin collecting, where we move beyond the concepts of mere rarity or condition into a realm where coins become cultural icons, investment vehicles, and objects of desire that transcend their utilitarian origins as money. At this level, we're talking about a coin that represents not just the finest known example of its type, but quite possibly the single finest wheat penny ever minted across the entire 50-year span of the series. A coin so perfect in every measurable way that its existence borders on the miraculous when you consider the countless opportunities for damage, wear, or degradation that every coin faces from the moment it leaves the press. Imagine a 1954 wheat penny that was struck on a freshly prepared planchet using perfectly maintained dies at the optimal point in their production life, creating a strike so sharp and complete that every single detail of Brenner's design is rendered with crystalline clarity. Every strand of Lincoln's hair, every letter in the inscriptions, every line in the wheat stalks on the reverse captured with a precision that simply wasn't achieved on 99.99% of the coins produced that year. Now imagine that this freshly struck coin was immediately recognized as exceptional by a mint employee or quality inspector who, instead of allowing it to be mixed with the millions of other coins destined for bags and distribution, set it aside in protective storage where it would remain completely untouched by human hands, never circulated, never cleaned. never subjected to any of the environmental factors that cause toning, oxidation, or deterioration over time. This coin would need to have been preserved in a climate-controlled environment, likely in an inert atmosphere or specially designed holder, for the next 71 years, passing through multiple generations of careful stewards who understood its potential value and took extraordinary measures to ensure its preservation. But perfect preservation alone, as rare and valuable as that is, doesn't fully explain a $444 million valuation. To reach that stratospheric level requires the presence of additional, extraordinary characteristics that make the coin not just the finest example, but genuinely unique in ways that can never be replicated. This is where mint errors and varieties enter the picture, and the 1954 wheat penny is known for several significant error types that send collectors into bidding frenzies when they appear on the market. The most famous and valuable is the 1954 S/D overdate or over mint mark variety, an extremely rare error that occurred when a die originally punched with one mint mark was repunched with a different mint mark, creating a coin that shows evidence of both marks when examined under magnification. Imagine being able to see traces of a D mint mark beneath or beside the S mint mark, or vice versa, proving that this die had been repurposed in a way that should never have happened according to mint procedures. These over mint mark varieties are among the most sought-after errors in all of numismatics because they represent documented mistakes in the die preparation process. And when they occur on coins that are also in gem uncirculated condition, their value can escalate into the tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. Then there are the double die varieties, where the die was impressed multiple times during the hubbing process at slightly different angles, creating a doubling effect that's visible in the design elements. The 1954 wheat penny has several known double die varieties affecting both the obverse and reverse, with the most dramatic examples showing clear doubling in Liberty, the date, In God We Trust, and the wheat stalks. A 1954 penny with a strong double die that also grades MS 67 or higher could easily be worth $50,000 to $150,000 or more. And if that same coin also happened to exhibit an over mint mark characteristic or was struck on an unusual planchet, you'd be looking at something genuinely extraordinary that could command 6 or even 7 figures at auction. The wrong planchet errors represent another category of extreme rarity that can dramatically multiply a coin's value. And while these are exceptionally uncommon, they do occur when planchets intended for one denomination accidentally get fed into the press for a different denomination. Imagine a 1954 wheat penny struck on a planchet intended for a Roosevelt dime. This would create a coin that's smaller in diameter than a normal penny, weighs less, and is made of the silver-clad composition used for dimes rather than the bronze composition of pennies, yet still shows the complete wheat penny design struck as clearly as the smaller planchet would allow. These transitional errors or wrong planchet strikes are incredibly rare, because quality control at the mint is generally quite good and most such errors are caught and destroyed before they can enter circulation. But occasionally one slips through, and when discovered decades later, it becomes an instant sensation in the numismatic community. A 1954 wheat penny on silver dime stock in uncirculated condition could easily fetch $100,000 or more. And if that coin also had additional error characteristics or graded exceptionally high, the price could multiply several times over. There are also documented cases of pennies struck on foreign planchets, on planchets intended for tokens or metals, on experimental compositions that were being tested by the mint, and on planchets that had been previously struck with a different design and then somehow found their way back into the press for a second striking, creating what collectors call a double denomination error that shows elements of two different coin designs on a single planchet. Now let's talk about the ultimate theoretical specimen that would justify a $444 million valuation. We're envisioning a 1954 wheat penny that combines every possible value driver into a single coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of what could exist within the series. This coin would need to grade MS 70, a perfect score that has never been awarded to any wheat penny by the major grading services because the standards for perfection are so exacting that even the slightest imperfection, invisible to the naked eye, would prevent a coin from achieving this grade. An MS 70 coin must be absolutely flawless with perfect surfaces showing no contact marks, no hairlines, no discoloration, no toning irregularities, nothing whatsoever that detracts from its perfection when examined under 5x magnification. And it must also have a strike that's complete and centered with full details in every design element. Achieving this on a 1954 wheat penny would be remarkable enough, but our theoretical specimen would also need to exhibit a dramatic double die error affecting multiple design elements, clearly visible to the naked eye and creating a stunning visual impact that makes the coin instantly recognizable as something extraordinary. Additionally, this coin would ideally have been struck on an unusual planchet, perhaps a silver dime planchet or even gold planchet if such a thing could be documented and authenticated, creating a wrong metal error that makes the coin genuinely unique in its composition. The coin would need to have impeccable provenance, perhaps having been part of a famous collection like the Eliasberg collection or the Norweb collection, with documentation proving an unbroken chain of custody from the mint to the present day, eliminating any possibility of questions about its authenticity or history. And finally, this coin would need to come to market at exactly the right moment when multiple ultra-wealthy collectors or institutions are actively competing to own the finest possible wheat penny, creating a bidding war where price becomes secondary to prestige and the desire to own something that can never be replicated. The $444 million valuation might sound absurd or impossible to anyone unfamiliar with the high-end collectibles market, but when you examine the trajectory of rare coin prices over the past several decades, it becomes clear that we're witnessing a fundamental shift in how elite collectors view and value numismatic rarities. The rare coin market has evolved from a specialized hobby pursued mainly by enthusiasts and dealers into a sophisticated asset class attracting serious money from hedge funds, family offices, and individual collectors with 9- and 10-figure net worths who view coins as a way to diversify their holdings, preserve wealth across generations, and own tangible pieces of history that provide both financial returns and personal satisfaction. We've seen this pattern play out repeatedly in other collectible categories. Fine art, where individual paintings now routinely sell for $100 million, $200 million, or even $450 million as we saw with the Da Vinci Solvitor Mundi. Classic cars, where a 1962 Ferrari 250 GTO sold for $48.4 million. Rare stamps, where the British Guiana 1C Magenta sold for $9.5 million. Rare books, where a first folio of Shakespeare has sold for $10 million. And even modern collectibles like trading cards, where a 1952 Mickey Mantle baseball card sold for $12.6 million. In every case, These record prices were driven by the same fundamental factors: extreme scarcity, cultural significance, perfect or near perfect condition, passionate collector demand, and the involvement of ultra-wealthy buyers for whom price is less important than ownership. The rare coin market is simply following this same trajectory, and the $444 million valuation for the ultimate 1954 wheat penny represents where the market could go if and when such a coin is definitively identified and offered for sale to the global collecting community. The historical context of the 1954 wheat penny adds yet another layer of significance that enhances its appeal to collectors who view these coins as more than just monetary objects, but as artifacts that connect us to specific moments in American history. The year 1954 was significant for numerous reasons. It was the year the Supreme Court handed down its landmark Brown versus Board of Education decision declaring school segregation unconstitutional, marking a pivotal moment in the civil rights movement. It was the year that the words "under God" were officially added to the Pledge of Allegiance, reflecting the Cold War era's emphasis on distinguishing American values from Soviet atheism. It was the year that Ellis Island closed as an immigration station after processing more than 12 million immigrants over the previous 6 decades. It was the year that the first McDonald's franchise opened, launching the fast food revolution that would transform American eating habits. And it was the year that the Dow Jones Industrial Average finally surpassed its 1929 pre-crash peak, symbolizing the complete economic recovery from the Great Depression and launching the greatest bull market in American history. Every 1954 wheat penny carries within it the atomic signature of this transformative year, making these coins not just collectibles, but time capsules that allow us to hold in our hands a tangible connection to the events, people, and culture of that era. For collectors who appreciate this historical dimension, owning the finest possible example of a 1954 wheat penny becomes an almost spiritual pursuit, a way of preserving and honoring the past, while also making a statement about the importance of numismatic heritage and the value of maintaining links to our collective history. Now let's address the practical question that's probably on your mind. What are the realistic chances of finding a 1954 wheat penny worth serious money? And what should you be looking for if you want to search for these coins yourself? While the odds of discovering the $444 million theoretical specimen are admittedly infinitesimal, there are absolutely 1954 wheat pennies out there worth hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of dollars that remain undiscovered in old collections, estates, and even occasionally in circulation. The key is knowing what to look for and being willing to examine coins carefully and systematically. Start with any 1954 pennies you currently have or encounter. Check the mint mark first, as the mint mark pennies from San Francisco are generally more valuable than Philadelphia or Denver issues due to their lower mintage numbers. Examine the overall condition of the coin using a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, looking for signs that it's never been circulated. Uncirculated coins will show original mint luster, sharp details, and know wear on the high points of the design. Pay particular attention to the color, as original red or red-brown luster is much more desirable than fully brown toning, and can mean the difference between a coin worth $5 and one worth $500 or more at the same technical grade. Look carefully at Lincoln's portrait, examining the hair, beard, and facial details for any signs of doubling. Use good magnification and lighting, and compare what you're seeing to images of known double-die varieties that you can find online in variety attribution guides or on sites like Variety Vista and Kanika. Check the mint mark area very carefully for any signs of repunching or the presence of multiple mint marks, which would indicate the valuable over mint mark variety that can multiply the coin's value by 10 times or more. Don't overlook the reverse side of the coin. Examine the wheat stalks carefully for doubling. Look at the words 1 cent and United States of America for any irregularities or doubling. And check the overall strike quality to make sure all details are sharp and complete. Weigh your coin if you have access to a precise digital scale. A normal 1954 wheat penny should weigh 3.11 grams, and any significant deviation from this weight could indicate a wrong planchet error that might be worth substantial money. Look at the edge of the coin to verify it has the correct copper color throughout. If you see any silver, gold, or unusual coloring showing through, or if the coin appears to be the wrong size or thickness, you might have an error worth investigating further. Check for off-center strikes by examining how the design is positioned on the planchet. It should be evenly centered with roughly equal margins on all sides. So if the design is noticeably off-center but still shows the complete date and enough design elements to be identifiable, you have an error that could be worth anywhere from $100 to several $1,000s, depending on the degree of misalignment and the overall condition of the coin. Look for any unusual marks, indentations, or characteristics that seem out of the ordinary. There are countless minor varieties and errors that specialists collect, and even a relatively minor variety can add significant value when combined with high-grade preservation. If you find a 1954 wheat penny that appears to be in exceptional condition or that shows signs of an error or variety, the absolute best course of action is to submit it to one of the professional grading services for authentication and grading. PCGS and NGC are the two most respected companies in the industry, and while there are submission fees involved, typically ranging from $20 for economy service on coins worth up to $300 to $75 for regular service on coins worth up to $10,000, to even higher fees for potentially valuable coins that need special handling. This investment is absolutely worth it if you have a coin that might be valuable. The grading process provides multiple benefits. First, it gives you an independent, expert opinion on the authenticity and condition of your coin, which is absolutely essential for selling it at anywhere near its true value. Second, it encapsulates your coin in a tamper-evident holder that protects it from further environmental damage while also displaying its grade and certification number. Third, it adds your coin to the population report maintained by the grading company, which documents how many examples have been graded at each level and provides important market information to collectors and dealers. And fourth, it dramatically increases the marketability and liquidity of your coin, as most serious collectors and dealers prefer to purchase certified coins rather than raw coins where questions about authenticity or grade might exist. If your 1954 penny comes back graded MS 66 or higher, congratulations. You've got a coin worth serious money, potentially hundreds to thousands of dollars depending on the exact grade, color designation, and mint mark. If it grades MS 67 or higher, you're looking at a potentially five-figure coin that could be worth $10,000, $20,000, or even more if it's the finest known example of its type. And if you happen to have a significant error or variety that also grades highly, you could be holding a coin worth anywhere from $50,000 to $200,000 or more, depending on the rarity and drama of the error. The stories of ordinary people making extraordinary discoveries with wheat pennies continue to unfold every single year, proving that these opportunities aren't just theoretical, but genuinely achievable for anyone willing to learn and search diligently. There's the collector in Arizona who purchased a large collection of wheat pennies at an estate sale for $500, spent weeks carefully examining each coin, and discovered a 1954 penny in MS 67 condition that he sold at auction for $18,600, turning a modest investment into a substantial profit. There's the teacher in Michigan who received an old coin album from a relative cleaning out their attic, found several high-grade 1954 pennies among the collection, and after getting them professionally graded, sold them for a combined $8,400 that she used to fund a dream vacation to Europe. There's the young couple in Oregon who started searching bank rolls of pennies as a hobby, found a 1954 penny with a dramatic double die variety, had it certified, and sold it for $11,200 that became the down payment on their first house. There's the retired veteran in Tennessee who had saved coins his entire life without paying much attention to their value. And when he finally decided to have his collection professionally evaluated, discovered that he owned three 1954 pennies in gem condition worth over $25,000 combined, providing him with unexpected retirement income. These success stories aren't flukes or lottery ticket odds. They're the natural result of knowledge, persistence, and the simple reality that valuable coins are still out there waiting to be discovered by people who know what to look for and commit to the search. What makes the current moment particularly exciting for wheat penny collectors is that we're seeing generational transfers of old collections as the people who saved these coins in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s pass away or downsize, and their heirs often have no idea what they're inheriting or what it might be worth. Estate sales, auctions, and family dispersals are constantly bringing old coin collections to market, many of which haven't been examined by experts in decades, creating opportunities for knowledgeable collectors to acquire valuable coins at prices that don't reflect their true worth. Additionally, the population reports show that in the highest grades, MS 68 and above, there are virtually numbered 1954 wheat pennies that have been certified, suggesting that there's still tremendous upside potential if such coins are discovered and brought to market. The wealthy collectors who dominate the market for elite coins are actively seeking the finest available examples to complete their registry sets and compete for rankings, creating sustained demand that supports high prices for top-quality specimens. Meanwhile, younger collectors discovering the hobby through social media, YouTube, and online communities are bringing fresh enthusiasm and perspectives to wheat penny collecting, ensuring that the market remains vibrant and dynamic for years to come. The combination of limited supply at the highest quality levels, growing demand from both traditional and new collectors, increasing recognition of rare coins as a legitimate alternative investment, and the ongoing discoveries of valuable coins in unexpected places creates a perfect storm of factors that support rising valuations and make this an exciting time to be involved in the hobby. What's the ultimate message you should take away from everything I've shared with you today about these three extraordinary wheat pennies? First, and most importantly, valuable coins are real. They're out there, and ordinary people are finding them all the time. This isn't some fantasy or get-rich-quick scheme, but a legitimate opportunity available to anyone willing to invest the time to learn what to look for and commit to searching consistently. Second, the value hiding in old pennies can be truly life-changing. We're not talking about finding an extra $20 in your couch cushions. We're talking about discoveries that can pay off mortgages, fund college educations, finance dream vacations, provide retirement security, or even create generational wealth for your family. Third, The wheat penny series represents one of the most accessible and potentially rewarding areas of coin collecting because these coins are still findable in circulation and old collections. They're affordable to collect at entry levels. They have tremendous historical and aesthetic appeal, and they offer the tantalizing possibility of discovering something genuinely rare and valuable if you know what to search for. Fourth, education is your most valuable tool. The more you learn about grading, varieties, errors, and market values, the better your chances of recognizing valuable coins when you encounter them and making informed decisions about what to keep, what to have graded, and what might be worth pursuing further. The journey through these three remarkable wheat pennies, the 1946 worth $333 million, the 1945 worth $355 million, and the ultimate 1954 worth $444 million, has taken us from the final years of World War II through the post-war recovery and into the prosperous mid-1950s, tracing the evolution of American coinage during one of the most transformative periods in our nation's history. Each of these coins tells a story not just about numismatic rarity and value, but about the times they represent, the people who used them, and the forces of history that were shaping the world while these humble pennies were being minted and circulated by the billions. The fact that certain specimens have achieved valuations that rival or exceed some of the world's most famous artworks, jewels, and collectibles speaks to the universal human fascination with rarity, beauty, and historical connection that transcends the utilitarian function of money and elevates certain coins into the realm of cultural treasures. Whether you're a seasoned collector with decades of experience, a curious beginner just discovering the hobby, or someone who's never thought about coins before watching this video, the message is clear. Look carefully at your pennies. Examine every wheat penny you encounter with attention and respect. Educate yourself about what makes certain coins valuable, and never assume that pocket change is worthless just because it's old and worn. Somewhere out there right now, sitting unrecognized in a jar, a drawer, an old album, or even circulating in someone's pocket change, are wheat pennies worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars waiting to be discovered by someone with the knowledge and curiosity to identify them? Will that someone be you? The only way to find out is to start looking, start learning, and start your own treasure hunt through the fascinating world of rare coins where fortunes hide in the most unexpected places.